going to start off semi-slow because, as I say, I might be old, but I'm slow. So then I get my speed going. You know how that is. So today we're going to talk about a few things. Okay, for those of you, well, the formation. For those of you who don't know me, my last name's Forsman, and I sometimes tell people I'm Forsman Gump because I ended up in places. I ended up as a chief scientist at the United Nations because somebody said, hey, you ought to apply for this. I said, what job is that? Oh, it's in Africa. I said, okay. Come on. I know a lot smarter people than me, but I was there. So after the movie Forrest Gump, I decided that was a good description of being at the right place at the right time and just accepting it, you know. So that's it sometimes. So I've had a lucky life, and I got to go to Hawaii a lot, back and forth in my time. Let's see what else I did. Oh, so like I said, had fun time. Yeah, that was a fun time. The Maasai are really generous, good people. And if you ever get a chance to hang out in Africa, they're worth visiting. Yes, so let's see, I got all the icons, Kilimanjaro, some pyramids I put behind me to look like I'd been to Egypt, Great Wall, those kinds of things. So I'm very, very pleased about that. And it seems to me that we're kindred spirits because you obviously like to travel as well. And when you travel someplace, it's nice to know a little about it. So I'm going to teach you a little about it in professorial style, of course, because that's what I used to do. But this time, we're going to ask a question at the end and get a hand raising because I have a hypothesis that came out of my doing research on this some time ago, and I went, I do not believe what I'm reading in the books. And I started that book by dogma. Just because someone says it's so doesn't mean it's so. And in science, we say it's a hypothesis. And so I have a hypothesis to share, and it would be good as you think through, you'll see it interspersed to what you think. And it's a fundamental issue about the formation of the Hawaiian Islands. So it's not trivial. It's the main thing. And I'm betting you've never heard this hypothesis before, but you will be an expert at the end of this, and you can say thumbs up or thumbs down. It's okay. I won't take offense. Okay. So yesterday's talk was about formation of the planet Earth. Thumbnail sketch, 13.8 billion years. Boom. Then we've got stars, our favorite planet, molten, and then lots of water. Boom, boom, boom. And so you can watch it on your telly if you want more detail on it. But the water was important because that's where Hawaii came from, right? Out there in the middle of the big Pacific Ocean. And it's a little calmer today, which is good. If you were on the International Space Station, this is what it would look like. Unfortunately, it's falling. So it's only got a few more years. They still don't know what to do with it. But they sure do have great photos from that. And NASA's been giving us great images and perspectives of Hawaii for some time. MODIS is one of their satellites which does that. And I just fall in love with these images. Obviously a rare day because there's no clouds out there. So what we're going to talk about is how did these islands formed? The question mark is not, that is. The question mark has to do with the hypothesis that I'll have you follow up. I'll introduce it slowly, but that's just for the ones that are sleeping or catching up with their Sudoku on their phones, is to say, we have a question. Previously, they tested out quizzes, and I was on the experimental team that tested quizzes on that, and they were fun, but they quit the quizzes. I thought they were fun. And then we'll go through all these things and we'll learn how did they really, really form. So geomorphology is the big one, obviously. Oceanography and volcanology, like I say, volcanoes, volcanoes, volcanoes. You can always get that and you're probably going to be right. They say there's approximately 137 islands. I take different references and I find the number changes. So apparently the census takers for the islands either can't agree or we're having new islands pop up or sink all the time. And that is what happens. So we can forgive them for that. And over 1,500 miles is this whole legacy of this chain of islands, which you'll see. Now, the cycle that we'll memorize, it's pretty straightforward. Got your island popping up. Barrier reef forms around it. Then it sinks, subsidence, or weathering. That's the general. That's just kind of the model to put in the back of your head, and we'll show it till you get tired of it. So, but the beautiful creations that come from that cycle are phenomenal. And the barrier reefs, the atolls, all that, which if you hear Mike Bradley's talks, and a lot of Pacific World War stuff out there, and he was a Marine, well, they say former Marine, there's no ex-Marines. As a former Marine, he was out there doing a lot of work in those things. So a lot of experience in World War II on these various atolls. And they're beautiful for divers and sailing, etc. They just, magnificent ecosystems are formed. Other than the one in Bikini Island, which was formed. But other than that one, we'll let that one go. So again, you'll see this a few times. But, okay, you got your volcanic island. We'll start with that. Then the island sinking, because all things tend to sink. We have it's called a geo. A barrier island, sinks, lost, atolls, and then seamounts. So we're going to go through that. So that's what if there was a quiz, that would be on it. The placement of this island that we're going to out there, Hawaii. I told that joke yesterday, so I won't do it today. Is out there. It's in the middle, if you accept plate tectonics, it's in the middle of the Pacific plate. You go, okay, and here's the other hot spots that are mapped out there. So there's not a lot of hot spots, and that's what my question will be around. The hot spots that occur in the middle of a plate. If we're looking at it from an angle, we can see the Pacific plate compared to the North American. Exaggerated a bit, but it shows you how it bounces up, and there's a lot of things happening there, okay? It just gives you a framework for what's happening across. So we're looking at it sideways, and over here is the hot spot, and it's 3 to 6 miles thick, okay? Under the crust under the ocean, whereas the crust under the land, 20 to 40 miles. That's significantly different, right? Big difference. So the crust under the ocean is significantly different than the crust under the landscape that we're used to, the dry land. That forms the basis of the understanding of the question that I've asked you to ponder, but I haven't even asked it yet. So plate tectonics, moving around, and you can see them again. There's our favorite vacation spot, Hawaii. But this plate tectonics, it happens other places too, and there's some action going on in the Indian Ocean where they have this thing, and they call it the 90 East Ridge because it's on the 90 longitude. And so in India, where we have this, and you can see it kind of through the water, and there, take the water and remove it, and you go, okay, so this is an area that's spreading apart, and they're not sure what's going to happen. So the idea of things spreading apart under the water, going all over the planet. This one is the one we're most prominent in the Viking cruises, because I give lectures in Iceland on that one. And it's great because you can show people, get out, and you can actually see it and believe it, and jump between Europe and North America back and forth. Actually hop back and forth on that one. And it's very impressive. So that's the middle of the plate and the Atlantic ridge that forms that. And when you go out and you see this, you become a believer. You say, okay, this is really happening. Now, what's underneath that is a plume. So from the magma down deep, coming up, a big plume, and there's Iceland. So we go, okay, I got that model in my head. That works where the ridge, where it's splitting, where the plates are separating. Makes sense. Okay, I got that. And of course, that forms the foundation of something that we all know. You've got a 10-year-old kid that'll teach you about this if you don't understand the basics, but everybody should understand that. So volcanoes, which we talk about it, we go, okay, we'll get a handle on it. They're all over the world, equally distributed. The Italians had some famous ones, to say the least. And they recently you read about Pompeii. They're deciding that all those people that were crusted together and all that, they've been doing DNA analysis and going, they weren't even family members. So it's interesting dynamics of what happens after a volcano. Stay away from Pompeii. The basics, again, with a little grass, nicely drawn, is you got your vent coming up, and volcanologists all give all kinds of names for all the different places, etc., because that's their job, to make it complex. But you saw the model earlier, explains the whole thing. So, and then the cloud and the ash, actually there's a sidebar on that. If you hear about geoengineering, some people think that we might have to affect the weather. It has to do with our knowledge about what happens when volcanoes go off, that it cools off the planet a little bit. So if the planet got hotter, and I don't believe that would ever happen, but if it did, there are certain people that are using this as a model for consideration. So volcanoes, different types, right? The steep slopes and the gentle slopes. The stratovolcanoes and the shield volcanoes. And we are going, and the strato are violent, and the gentle ones the gentle slopes are the more gentle. So of course, Hawaii would be a more gentle, relaxed one, right? Of course. This one, probably a stratovolcano. Yeah. You remember that when that one happened? If you live up in Oregon or Washington, you certainly knew about it. Yeah, very, very impressive. Very impressive. Let's see here. So they fall into two categories, violent and more Pacific. Kind of rhymes. So more gentle in Hawaii, more violent on the west coast, the Pacific, the Cascades, and up California through Oregon and into Washington and to Canada. And then, what else? So then the gentle slopes, because you'll see the whole mountains. You're like, is that really a volcano? It just looks like a mountain because it's so gentle and has built up over time. And those are what Hawaiian Islands have got a surplus of. And of course, back to the genesis of the big question, under a hot spot, as things move, more volcanoes occur. And again, that hot spot, they show a picture of it, and that's the question I'm going to get back to. So we've got a general idea of this, right? It's coming along. And we hope our friends at the USGS and other places are learning how to predict these. The good news is they're getting better and better, and they can tell you a couple weeks ahead of time, get out of town. And up there it says remote sensing. Jet Propulsion Laboratory at NASA has discovered that they can actually monitor the perturbation of the surface with some radar, LIDAR, that shows the stress. And so they've gone back and they go, wow, if we can actually predict when they're going to go. So we're getting better and better, and that's a good thing for men, women, and children, and animals. So we're going to get better, and that's good news. So here we are without the water. You can probably pick out Hawaii. I should have highlighted it, but there it is. So that chain from Hawaii, and we'll see it many, many more times, but you say, okay, that's interesting. Real flat areas there, something going on there. And most geologists, if they're honest, will go, we can't really tell you why all those things are there. But they're there. Now we're back to volcanoes. So we have them about 137 islands, and you'll see that there's 6 currently active ones that, and Big Island's got some stuff there you might be able to see. People are excited about that. Starting from the underground, going up, and just keep erupting. And throughout their life cycle, they start underground, finally break water, make mountains, scare the tourist, and build islands. So this is what they might look like when they first start. Underneath, you might see some bubbles, might see some other things. And these are creating phenomenal ecosystems. And not only as they come through, these ecosystems, which are being monitored by underwater ROVs or underwater unmanned vehicles or submarines, where these hot plumes come out, NASA scientists have been sampling those, and they're saying the life formed on Earth probably from the heat and the process of volcanoes coming up under the ocean. So this might be genesis for how things happened on Earth. We're still learning about it, but it's very exciting for biologists and people like that. Once they come on the land, beautiful, beautiful. And in Iceland, we've seen some awesome displays of lava coming through. And the difference between magma and lava, right? If you see it, it's lava. Magma is when it's in the ground. So that's the difference. It's the same stuff, but that's the difference. Now, a little sign down there said, but volcanoes aren't the only reason. It would be nice to say that's how they all form, but there's other things involved, and we want to think about that. It's a major reason. If you took priorities, you'd say, yeah, it's a priority. But there are other factors involved in the creation. Now, you've got to learn the two names, and there's a third one if you're underwater. It's pillow lava, but there's two types of lava, okay? Pahoehoe and A'a. And how you tell them the difference is the way they originated, according apocryphal, is that a young Hawaiian was running, and as he ran across the rough stuff, he goes, okay? And when we got to the smooth stuff, pahoehoe, pahoehoe. So that's how I was trained to know the difference. Must be true. Must be true. So the soft, loopy stuff, that's the pahoehoe. Now, pahoehoe might be good on your feet, but it's hellacious for driving. So there's things that you have to go and go, yeah, so that could be or pahoehoe, but that's pahoehoe. It'll still stop your car. No matter. And then there's the fun stuff where when it meets the sea, because that's when action happens, because it's when it cools down that things start to get exciting. And when it cools down, or when it's happening by the water interface, we're learning about this. And of course, I always have to plug this because my wife works for a company called Oceaneering, and they make half of the ones on the planet of these unmanned underwater vehicles. And if you saw the Deep Horizon, when they showed what was going on in the Gulf of Mexico, my wife's company did. They do all that. So a lot of fun stuff, and that's why we're learning about these, because it's too deep to dive. I was a Navy frogman. You're not going to put me down that deep. So you gotta have machines to help us. Robots for the deep ocean, and if we were clever, we'd stick with robots on Mars. I'll be happy to talk to anybody that thinks going to Mars is a good idea. I'm happy to talk to you after this. And I worked for NASA, and I was the one no Mars guy at NASA for sure. So this is happening in a lot of places. And Loihi, someone asked me if I was going to point to Loihi. I remember someone said that was to Eric. We're going to show that a little bit. So that's the newest. That's exciting in terms of what's going on out there. Now the model that I want you to keep in your head when you go back home and your grandkids ask you these things and you want to impress them, okay, Grandpa, what did you learn? Is it the Hawaiian emperor or Emperor Hawaiian, you'll see it switch back and forth, seamount chain. And so there we are in Hawaii, down there, it goes all the way up, and they have a really neat term for it. You'll see it on the map. They call it the bend. So that's creative. And the dog legs up to the bottom of the Aleutians, okay? And this is the Pacific plate, that whole thing. And where it hits the Aleutian Islands is where it ends and bumps into the other plates. So you go, okay, how come that's there? But it's been there a long time, and you'll see that. So that's the thing to get in your head. That whole chain is like a family tree, family history. See? Bend. I love it when the scientists give us excellent terms like that. So the Hawaiian chain, the emperor chain, so you can call it anything you want, but that's the thing. And down there at the bottom where you see the colors, that's the only place above the water. We've taught, okay, so out at the emperor, most everything is down below water, up there at the northwest. Midway, you might have heard Michael Bradley talk about Midway. very popular in World War II, to say the least. And that's sticking above water. We'll see that in a minute. And then higher and higher and higher, with these as being the active ones at this point. And so this one on the right, that's Loihi, all right? And again, it shows that Hawaiian hotspot. Keep that in mind. Underwater, what's going on at these places is phenomenal, and we're learning new species all the time. A lot of the species, and I give that talk, I give a couple ocean talks. I'm trying to think which one. I'll show some of the species. You look at them and say, you'd probably step on it on the sidewalk and not think much of it because they don't look that spectacular, but they are life forms, and they are new life forms, and we're discovering them all the time. So it's very exciting times for those who study biology. Here we are again, Hawaii down there. You see the chain up to the Aleutians. So from TK is Tokyo, San Francisco. We look at that as a kind of a, okay, that's the range that it crosses. Once again, another view of it. Hawaii right there. There's Japan. There's the United States. Used to make a joke about a politician in Alaska that said she could see Russia, but we won't go there. So this life cycle, of course, once again, say it about 10 times and everybody will get it for sure. Island, sinking land, what's that called? Geo? Yeah, geo. Barrier reef, atolls, and seamounts. And that's what it looks like from the side. If you're underwater, looking up the chain, looking at all the seamounts and sunk, this is what it would look like. And you can see it lining up there. This is probably the bend because it turns. All right. Here we have an atoll. This is the farthest one, the Kuri of the islands. And so when you look at how that was formed, and there was a big island there at one point. Coral reefs formed all around it. Then the island is no longer there, but the coral, the fringe is still there. Great for scuba diving, great adventures. And for those that didn't get drafted, this is what Midway Island looks like. And you look at that and you go, whoa, a lot of battles fought over a little piece of land, right? Yeah, little island. So that's what Midway looks like, and you go, aha, it's an atoll with a couple little remnants of land there. So pretty amazing, beautiful scuba diver's dream. Beautiful places. Here we are down here, Hilo, our first stop, all the way to Honolulu, going all, see where Midway is? So that's going to be, you can see everything else is sunken, but it's all part of this Hawaiian emperor chain. You go, okay, I kind of got it. Sounds like a, what do you call it? Yes, a conveyor belt, if you will. Along that area, because I kept talking about life and biology, well, they've decided to try to protect some of that, which is good. So there's a lot of national marine parks up there, not marine mammal, but marine parks, and the diving, etc. And they're trying to control fishing so your grandkids can come out and also see the beauty and keep this as pristine as possible. And that's always a challenge. We talk about the plate, going back and forth, that surface is moving above this hot spot that's creating all this. It's about, if you want to know how fast that is, just look at your fingernails, because that's how fast it's moving. About the speed of your fingernails, all right? So it's maybe an inch or two at the end of the year. That's it. So always try to remember, your fingernails and plate tectonics are about the same speed. So here we are, we got the chain, direction, and we look at if the oldest ones popped up and moved, how old are they? So this is how many years old it is. A couple different representations on how old things are, but it's less than 1 million years for the Big Island. So the things you see there, all the way out to Kauai, which is maybe 4 million years ago. That might sound like a long time, but when the dinosaurs left, they left 66 million years ago. So again, everything is kind of relative to what else was happening on the planet. And this is the formation of the islands, of course. So the conveyor belt formation, means when you're way out here, you got a lot older, and the younger ones are standing up there. So we see the oldest ones up there. Seamounts are very old. Erosion occurs. And the geos are mid-range in terms of age. And that's what one looks like underwater. There's one in Ethiopia. I didn't know that till recently. On dry land, this remnant, a mountain that they believe was at the bottom of the ocean at one point. So a lot of interesting geomorphological artifacts out there. I know not everybody's a geologist, but it's still interesting that this is going on all over the planet. All right, way up there, they got 71 million years. Coming down here to Hawaii, 1 million years. So you can see the age of this. And you go 71, so somewhere in between at the seamount, that's when the 66 million years ago, the dinosaurs left. So you see how you put into perspective changes over time. And if we were looking underwater from Japan to British Columbia or San Francisco, this is what it would look like to us, generally underwater, looking at it from a side profile. Again, this is what we have midway to Hawaii. And I won't bore you with all the details, but they're aging it. So these are the dates that they believe are, Mauna Kea is only 300, 400,000 years old. You know. So progressively down to Necker, which we'll see, I'll show it to you again, that's about 10 million years. So where do we see Necker? Oh, it's coming up. And again, trying to protect it all. And I won't even attempt to say, I just call it the Papa Marine National Monument. And the reason I call it that is because it's the Papa Hanua'amukakuaikia Marine. So I call it Papa. There's some people that are better at it than I. But again, there's incredible things growing underneath there that they've never seen before. And so people said, yeah, why don't we make it a National Marine Monument and protect these things? Now, why would we want to protect something like that? Because your pharmacy is making things to make your cholesterol, your diabetes, your Alzheimer's. Remember Alzheimer's? If you can remember it, you don't have it. So these are the things that we find out because it's billions of years of biochemistry underwater. So that's why we protect it, because we don't know what it'll do. There's little periwinkles off of Madagascar that's to cure leukemia. Otherwise, why would I care about a periwinkle? So that's why, because we realize that Pfizer claims a lot of things, but it came from nature. So it behooves us as human species to protect this stuff. It just makes sense. It's a conservative perspective on taking care of things because they may take care of us later. So here we are again. Remember Necker? Necker's right there in the middle. That one was 10 million. Okay, so you go, okay, 2. So you can begin to count. That stuff's all underwater, except midway. It's up there. And you begin to say, all right, conveyor belt, it's starting to, okay. It's redundant enough that I hope he doesn't do it too many more times. But yes, nice view, nice projection of what it would look like if we could just see it without the water. And there's some things popping up here off of the Big Island. We'll see that a little more. So it's this knowledge, and where do we get it? We get it from scientists and oceanographers. Yes. See, science is important. It keeps some strange people with too much brains off the streets, you know. So we're doing all kinds of stuff, submarines, radar, sonar, mapping, and how much of the ocean do we understand and map? 5%. So our ignorance is profound. And within that ignorance, and in my other talks on marines and what's underneath the world, you say, yeah, okay, we don't know much about it, and it might be important. So let's take care of it. What the heck? And then we get all these people, and like I said, instead of endangering the streets and cities, we put them in labs, and they count all this stuff together, and they make the maps. They don't call them mad scientists for nothing. So there it is. Now, we're getting up to the big question that I need y'all's help from. I'm from the South. So we got this fixed spot. That's the model that you've been taught. Conveyor belt. Okay, we got it. Right, all right. And there's a hot spot, and there's the mantle. And it's magma when it's down in there. It's lava when it's on the surface, right? Once it comes out, okay, that's the model. Rotating over it, boom, 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 boom. As it moves over, keep popping up. So really need collective intelligence, wisdom of the crowds. Interesting phenomenon. And that's why I'm seeking your assistance. They've been telling us this model. Professor Tim says, wait a minute, it's only 3 to 4 miles thick. You seen the moon? It's got a lot of pockmarks. Well, that same thing's been happening in the ocean. And I'm going, why wouldn't a meteorite knocked out 66 million years ago, it knocked out the dinosaurs, why wouldn't one of those have actually, boom, put a crack? You know how your windshield, you get a rock, it cracks, and it stays there, and then it... So why wouldn't it have made a soft spot in the hot spot? To me, it makes more sense than to say, oh yeah, they just randomly showed up in the Pacific Ocean. Randomly, okay, why wouldn't it happen, if it was random, why wouldn't it happen more often? You saw the map. There's not that many hot spots. So Professor Tim says, my hypothesis, and we'll raise hands at the end of it, is we know that happened. And we know it happened millions and millions and millions of years. So about, based on that map, about 70 to 80 million years ago is when it would have hit and formed the first of that Emperor Hawaii chain. And all it's got to do is crack it a little bit. You've seen the windshield. Boom. Things happen. Why wouldn't that happen? Why would it make more sense? Because on land, again, it's 20 to 40 miles thick of crust on the land. Here it's only 3 to 4 miles thick. And you have something that would wipe out the dinosaurs, the power of these things. Isn't that a plausible hypothesis? You sit on this one, we'll think about it. So, started there, there's a chain, lots of volcanoes. This is the model we have, plates moving along. How did that happen? And why shouldn't it get wider? Why shouldn't there be more of them? And if it's not increasing in width, if there's not more of them happening, then why just there or in those other few spots on the planet? Now when we look at Iceland, that's where it's splitting. That makes sense. The plates are splitting. It's all weakening up. It's going to come up in a weak fissure is where the magma would come up. And once the magma comes up, bohoy hoy, that's the smooth stuff. That's the rough stuff. And we have on the Big Island the different history of the volcanoes and the various areas that they influenced. You'll be able to see some of that with Kilauea, can't even say it now, Kilauea being the most recent. And over the years, I've driven that road in the past, you can't, but it gets closed quite a bit on the south side. So these are just a map from 92 on, so about the last, 25 years, keeps creating more and more landscapes. So the volcanoes are the biggie, but they don't explain everything. And my brother-in-law used to live down there off this map, and we could walk out from his place. It was the southernmost, and you could walk right out there where, for the older dates. They got to keep up on it. Yes. This is the new one. This is the kid in kindergarten. This is our youngest one, Loihi, and it's growing. It's very youthful. And so you go, great. We're watching birth. 50,000 years, there'll either be a huge separate volcano in new land, or it'll just extend Hawaii's southernmost section. And why is that important? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's creating new terrain. And as we know, anybody in the real estate business? Nobody? Come on. Got to be a realtor in here. Anyway, they just won't admit it. So I think it was Mark Twain said, buy real estate because they're not making more of it. Not true. They are making more of it. You too can make a mint selling new land out there. Ah, yes. So volcanoes are extremely important. They're impressive to watch. They're fun to watch. We got the direction. There's that hot spot with the question, how do hot spots start? And since nobody knows, you can't give a wrong answer. Nobody really knows why this happens. That's why it's fun to be a scientist. Nobody knows. Okay, so we did astronomy, because the formation, and I also put the question mark behind it because the meteorology would fall under, the meteorites hitting would kind of fall under astronomy. We did geomorphology, farming in the oceans, pedogenesis, formation of the soils. So that's all the stuff after the volcanoes, right? You may or may not know this, but the land, the soil in the Caribbean comes from Africa. Anybody know that? Hey, we got some people there. The Sierra spits up the sands and the dust in the soil, along with spiders and mites and all kinds of neat things. It's a whole ecosystem, and here's an image from the satellite of that blowing sand, and so actually created the soil off the Caribbean. You go to those islands. So Jamaica, Cuba, formed from that. We don't have that here. We don't have that big source of airborne. So things develop a little different. So after Loihi gets out into first grade, how is it going to form? So it's getting in first grade, and like we have up here in the Big Island, first thing to do is create the lava. Then we have the biggest factor is meteorology, weather, right? That's the biggest. And the thing in Hawaii that you'll discover when you go there is that there's a windward and a leeward. Where the wind is coming is bringing moisture. The dry wind shadow, rain shadow on this side, rain shadow, that's the dry side. So moist, wet, tropical on one side, desert on the other. And all the islands were formed and impacted that because that forms the soil. So you got a lot of trees and bugs because if it's warm and there's a lot of moisture, you got bugs working like crazy with the soil to create the lush farmland that we grow pineapples and various things on. On the dry side, not so much. So that's the major model to keep in mind, and you will see it, and I will show you some too. You will see it in terms of wet side, dry side. Very stark, very stark. And if now that you know this for sure, you'll go, yeah, that's cool. That's obviously the leeward side because the rain is all dropped off on the windward side. And everybody will be impressed. So what happens then on our islands? You look on this side and you go, oh, that looks well worn, right? A lot of erosion on that side. So that's probably the rain side, right? Windward. We look at that side. You think that's the rain shadow? You think that's the desert side? Or do you think that's erosion working overtime on volcanic soils? Because that stuff's tough to erode. And that's forming the landscape. So the islands you're going to visit, you realize once the volcano's there, and you saw that over tens of millions of years, now the action is the meteorology. Which side of the island is it on? And that's what we get to see. So if we go over to Molokai, you also notice the coral reefs have a big factor. So between the coral reefs growing, whether it's windward, whether it's leeward. The other factor that you might notice, it's a subtle, there's also a human influence here. You got to really kind of look to see that there's a little bit of human influence on the landscape as well, but you've got all these factors coming together that form what you will be visiting on the Hawaiian Islands. Once again, great place. You got to go in there. If you get to Diamond Head, that's fun to go in there in the tunnel and see what's going on. Yes, good stuff. Then the last piece of the puzzle in terms of how they were formed is evolutionary in many senses of that term. And when I say evolutionary, it's because there was the pristine as we understood it, as when the first Polynesians landed anywhere between, there's different dates, but say 400, 600, 800 when they landed. And so you have that. Then you have the plants, the biodiversity from all the plants and animals that came out there in the Middle Pacific. And they're on a virgin territory. So their influence was tremendous because what do the birds do? They bring seeds. The seeds grow plants. They also bring various microbes that have an influence. So a combination of those things, and there are many birds that aren't there anymore. It's the poster child for extinction of birds, by the way, where you're going. It's just the way it is, folks. And so you had those, then you had animals, mammals, and one of those mammals was what? Homo sapiens, of course, and we showed you the influence they have. So you got all the volcanoes, you got the plates moving, you got the windward, you got the leeward, you got the animals coming about. All those things combine to make what you're going to see. So when we talk about how did the Hawaiian Islands happen, you go, boom, we got volcano. You can line them up and piece that together and impress your grandchildren. Look at the creation of the landscape from the lava flowing and flowing. It's kind of pixelated. We've got a little bit of human influence, subtle, but you can see it. You got the landscape. So this would not be the leeward side, correct? This would be the windward, the rain side. You can see it, and you go, aha. And look at all the erosion that's coming from that side. You go, okay, so that's why it's there. So you can point and pick it all out. Boom. Windward side, erosion, humans, all comes together. Just beautiful pictures. And you're going to be there very soon, very soon. Kauai is a beautiful place to go. You go there, you go, I think I know. I learned that the other day. This is the windward side. This is where the rain and the wind erodes it, carves out the landscape. It does have one. Carves out the landscape. Kauai's got incredible, get a helicopter ride over that. It's very impressive if you ever get a chance to do that. Kaho'olawe is opening up for tourists. So that was a bombing range up till real recently by the U.S. Navy, their famous place to drop bombs, but we won't go into that. And the other factor, of course, is human influence through agriculture. So you've got all those things coming together to form the landscape of what is Hawaii today. And you're going to see Hawaii in a couple days. So hopefully I've given you a little foundation of how this came up. And now the question, because I got to find out, a row of hands that say, Tim's hypothesis that it might have been a meteorite that caused a hot spot. All those that think it might have happened, raise your hand. Yay, I'm going to submit that to a paper. All right, that's it. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful time.